Hi there guys, Megan Ryan JC, I'm James Cropper. Today's video will be on astral projection, but more specifically, 4 signs that you've astral projected as a kid. Maybe you're an adult and you're looking back on your past and you're like, you know what, some of those experiences felt a little too real to be a dream. Well, hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on that. I've written down just 4 simple things that you could have been going through. But first, I feel like I have to tell you what astral projection is, just in case you're watching this video for the first time and you don't know what astral projection is. Now, astral projection is the ability to leave your body, literally having an out-of-body experience. This is not a myth. So many people throughout the years have been able to do it, and since 2012, since the rise in its popularity, a lot of people have started practicing astral projection and experiencing the astral realms. Now, the reason as to why they call it astral projection is because when your consciousness leaves your physical body, it has to inhabit an astral form. You see, you have many bodies. You have the physical body, the astral body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the etheric body. There possibly could be more. But ultimately, the reason as to why your consciousness uses these bodies is so that it can experience different planes of existences. Okay? So if you were going to go to a dimension that primarily deals with emotions, you would need to shift into your emotional body and exit your physical body in order to go and travel to that plane of existence. I'd imagine that plane would have the word emotion in it, and I say that because the astral body goes to the astral plane. The emotional body goes to the emotional plane. The mental body goes to mental planes. Perhaps you've heard stories of people being laid spread on an operating table, and whilst they're being operated on by a surgeon, they've ended up leaving their body, witnessing the entire surgery. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the stories back then circulating astral projection rose in popularity because of the surgery aspect of everyone, going into hospitals and experiencing these weird experiences. If you go further back, then you start getting into ancient texts, where people like Jesus end up astral projecting. Ancient pharaohs would astral project. It's pretty much everywhere. It's in witchcraft. So the further back you go, it tends to rise in popularity, predicated upon the circumstances surrounding the topic. Nowadays, it's YouTube videos. Everyone's teaching everyone how to astral project, so it's pretty popular, it's pretty common, but you might have done it already in your childhood before YouTube came out. YouTube is relatively new, I think. Let's go into it. 4 signs that you've possibly astral projected as a child within your past. The first sign is, were you ever the type of child to lay down in bed and every now and then, as you're kind of drifting in and out of consciousness, you see somebody standing in the middle of your doorway? Yeah. Or maybe your door's open and you can see someone there, whereas you could have sworn blind that you went to sleep with the door closed. Or the hallway light was off, why is it on? Or maybe the opposite, it was on, why is it off? Or for a fraction of a second, you didn't hear your parents downstairs. It's like you've accessed a reality where they've gone to bed already. Or perhaps weren't even there in the first place. That's a sign that you've astral projected before, because usually when you're in and out of the hypnagogic state, which is those sleep states, in and out of dream states, your third eye tends to open up and you'll tend to start seeing into other realms. Now, other beings in the astral plane can see you. You can see you popping in and out of different dimensions, different realities, and it piques their interest. And so, like myself, I've often done this. I've bared witness to people popping in and out of different dimensions, and I've just literally stood there and I've watched them. Actually, one occasion, I was a shadow being. I was completely black. My astral body was black. I'm not sure why, but I was standing there and I was watching this blonde kid pop in and out of dimensions. And so, you never know, the shadow being that you see could potentially be a person. If you had told your parents within the past, then they probably didn't believe you. And the reason for this is quite simple. Their perception on what a child's imagination kind of looks like is inherently flawed. It makes no sense. To an adult, a child is very active with their imagination. Some could believe that a child would actually create in their mind's eye something that they're looking at. Probably creating a cartoon character out of nothing, and talking to it back and forth, entertaining his or herself with his or her imagination as a way of fun or play. But that's a lot of effort that children don't do. Within my past, I never did that. And children don't do that. Whenever you see children in daycare centers, they're playing with toys, cars and robots, maybe transformers and dinosaurs. They're not having to imagine those physical things, they're just there. Matter of fact, the little input that they are putting into play is the sound effects, like rawr and, and they're not having to imagine that within their mind's eye neither. It's all a physical interaction with physical things, which is play. So notice I didn't mention the imagination being used there. And so there is a disconnect between how adults believe that children are playing compared to how children are actually playing. And when they say things like, oh, it's just in your imagination, or you're just creating it or making it up, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't resonate there. Because I think deep down, everyone knows that it takes a lot of effort to do that, and children deliberately don't do that as a form of play. They play with physical things. They don't play or project with their imagination. If they did, then they would just lay down and close their eyes and imagine themselves playing with toy cars. So it's very not normal for a child to even want to create a figure standing in the middle of their doorframe. It doesn't make sense. But adults tend to shoo it away anyway. And so if you encountered any type of being within the astral plane, after which voicing your story to your parents and they gave you these similar reactions, these similar responses, then you more than likely did astral project. The second one is flight. Did you have any dreams of flying? Many of which started off in your bedroom. Getting out of bed, looking out the window and jumping. If you did, then you more than likely astral projected as a child. Now, there are two ways to go about flying dreams or flight dreams. There's the one where you're in the middle of the dream completely unconscious, then you just decide to take off, which often is reflective or representative of your consciousness at the time. Because it's a dream. Dreams reflect your consciousness at the time. Or, you're laying in bed, you're probably staring out the window, staring at the stars. Then all of a sudden, you feel like you can fly, and you probably close your eyes a little bit, but ultimately you feel like you maintained your consciousness the entire way through. Then, you just felt like you could do it, and you just left. Or, you levitated. Or, being in the room told you to try it out, Or, you tripped. Realized that you're floating on the floor after tripping out of bed. Probably, there are so many ways to end up levitating or finding flight within the astral plane. Many of which don't actually feel like flying. You feel weighed down, not weightless. You can't feel your body. It's numb, so you're not feeling the air go through your fingers. And it depends on the dimension you're in. But I digress. If you flew as a child, then you most likely astral projected, especially if you flew over your house or over your neighborhood. The third sign is watching yourself sleep. This is an obvious one. But again, after going to your mum and saying to her, "Hey mum, last night I watched myself sleep," and watching her response to that, you probably pushed it back to your mind because it felt insignificant. It felt like you were just dreaming, or you were just using your imagination. But ultimately, to be able to initiate such a feat, to be able to astral project to that extent where you're looking at your physical body, is quite a feat in and of itself. I, to this day, still struggle to astral project to this dimension, to see my physical body. In many of my stories, I mention as to how I don't see my physical body, or the silver cord attaching my astral form to my physical body, which apparently is really important. And so, again, great feat being able to see your physical form if you did that as a child, then you're more than likely able or capable of doing that again as an adult. There's an abbreviation out there somewhere which means real time, astral projecting to real time. A lot of people want to be able to do that because then they'll be able to see people, spy on people, which it always goes there with their mind. I want to spy on this person and the next, or just be a fly on the wall. Matter of fact, there was a survey that happened quite a while ago, and I think it's still happening every now and then. Someone will say on social media, hey, out of these 5 superhero powers, which one would you want? Most people choose invisibility, this is proven, over flight. Their excuse is they just want to be a fly on the wall. Astral projection kind of gives you that ability to be a fly on the wall. I wouldn't suggest that. I mean, there are so many other things that you could be doing, so many better things that you could see. Nightly disturbances. So perhaps you were laying there and then you felt a tug. Day 1. Day 2, you felt a little bit more of a tug, a little bit more aggressive. Day 3, you wake up, your sheets are off the bed. Did you actually wake up in 3D? 1. Maybe you woke up in the astral plane because the being took the sheets off of your bed to signify to you that, hey, you just materialized in another dimension. Wake up, If you didn't have that growing up, then perhaps you had one of these other ones. Your bed shaking, or maybe moving just a little bit. Usually, that's your astral body emitting so much energy that it shakes your bed. More often than not, when you're having these awakenings, these energy explosions. Essentially, that is the birthing process of your astral body. Developing over time, the more you astral project, the more it develops. As a child, you have it rough because everything's developing. Your chakras are developing. All of your other bodies that I mentioned earlier start to develop. You get these weird pressures in your head and in your throat, and your consciousness might even drop into your throat and you'll feel like you're being stretched. That was a horrible one for me. And so your bed shaking could just be a sign of the evolutionary process dealing with your astral body. Growling, seeing people in your room from time to time. Oh, here's a good one. Seeing objects shifting into people. That's your jacket on the door, but now it's kind of hunched down a little bit and it looks like its head's turning. At some point you close your eyes whilst looking at that mysterious chair or that mysterious object that looked like a person standing in the corner of your room. At some point you close your eyes, your third eye opened up, then you kept fixating on it the same way you were with your eyes open. Okay? It happens so quickly you think you're actually looking at it in reality. Most of the time when that happens, you end up in the etheric plane, which is heavily influenced by your imagination. Your imagination will project itself in the etheric plane. And so those pile of clothes all of a sudden become the very thing that you're afraid of them becoming. Okay? That happens a lot growing up. So those are the 4 signs that you potentially, astral projected as a child. My name's Ryan JC, Ryan James Crobber. I've put my links in the description below, so you can check those out if you want. And if you want to learn how to astral project, I also offer a course on my website, ryancropper.com. Speak to you all pretty soon. Peace.